What's going on, guys? Jeff here with Dubber's Garage Culture, and today's episode I'll be showing you guys how to shave all your little holes and all the nooks and crannies, and yeah, getting them filled in. So follow along. Alright, so we're going to be working on the passenger side frame rail here and getting all this cleaned up. I will be patching this hole with some sheet metal that I don't have right now, but we'll get to that on another episode. But yeah, just little holes like this, you know, fill all these little holes in. I'm going to be removing all the seam sealer along the, I guess the pinch, not the pinch weld, but where the two panels meet together. There's a bunch of little spot welds that are drilled in there, but I'll be getting rid of all this seam sealer. You can see that I've already kind of started there, but it's gonna be a lot of work. I'll be using a wire wheel to get all this stuff off. That's kind of the best way that I've found to get it off, but there's a couple different techniques. You can heat it up and burn it away, but it's just manual labor at this point. So follow along. So first things first, most important thing I think is safety glasses. You're gonna have a lot of the seam sealer flying off all over the place. It comes off pretty hot, kind of melted almost, so you don't want to burn your eyes off when you're grinding all that stuff off. So very important. Like I said, I'll be using a wire brush on the end of a drill. I went and picked up a kit that's got multiple pieces. You got some straight pieces. This helps hold all the bristles in place and get into those little tiny cracks and crevices. You got a cup wire brush here, and just like a 3-inch, I believe this is 3-inch, 2.5 or something, either way. And you got a bunch of little small ones, but these are probably what's going to be stripping most of the seam sealer off the easiest, I think. I've done this to 2 cars now, and these things work pretty good. So there's other things. There's Scotch-Brite or 3M makes a disc to go on the end of your 4.5-inch angle grinder. I think they're purple, kind of look like a sponge, but they're really hard. That works pretty decent to get the paint stripped away. Not too sure on how it works on seam sealer, but I don't have one, so this is what we're gonna go with. I do have this what is this, 4-inch on here. Been using this, works pretty good. I also have a 60 grit flappy disc on the end of a 4.5-inch angle grinder with no guard, and that's what happens. But like I said, I'll be using the wire brush first. So you just basically want to get working at, you know, crevices that have seam sealer in it. This little area here. As you can see, it does a pretty good job. Gets all that grime and stuff off. You got to really put some pressure into it to get it down to bare metal, to strip the paint, the seam sealer, the paint and primer and all the rest of that stuff off. I'll show you how that works. Tighten this up before it goes flying off into my face. See that? They go right down to bare metal. So I think I'm gonna be cutting this stuff out and putting a flat piece in there. I don't really like these divots, so I'll be just getting a hole saw and just cutting that out. The smaller little holes like these, they're not too bad. that's basic prep for welding up that hole. So we'll move on to the seam sealer here. So you basically just want to work at all this stuff. It gets pretty thick down on the groove down here, or this curve down here. But yeah, just work at it. It takes time. As you can see, it flies everywhere. It's molten rubber basically, so that's why wearing eye protection is important. So that's the gist of that. You can tell there's little spot welds here and here, and the seam sealer's kind of, I guess this seam is kind of pulled apart, pulled away a bit, so I'll be having to work at that with a little dolly and hammer and get that smoothed out a bit. What I might end up doing is when I go to paint this after it's primered, I'll run a bead of silicone in here, some sort of body filler silicone, just to keep this from separating away any more than it already has, and clean up that lip, because I don't really like that lip being shown like that. But yeah, wire wheel, and like I said, get yourself some of these little guys so you can get right down in the corners. With these big wire wheels, they don't really like to get in those corners that great. They leave a little bit of a gap down at the groove, so these things come in handy where you can get right down inside there. And yeah, tight places up on the tower and wherever, really. Just yeah, so we'll keep working at it. If you find that it starts to gum up like this, you can flick it in reverse and go the other opposite direction. And then it'll straighten up those bristles there. Should be able to pull them out a lot easier and get it worked out. So once you're happy with everything and you are at that next step of welding up all your holes and whatnot, just take a air compressor and clean up that area. So I'm going to probably right here grind this down to bare metal so I have a nice ground area for my welder. All right, now that that's done, I'll just go ahead and hook up my ground clamp. And I just have a super old, not super old, I guess, I don't know if you want to call, like, what, I guess probably 20 years now. Shit, it is super old. 20-year-old welder, little MIG welder, Lincoln Weld Pack 100. It's good for body panels and stuff, nothing too crazy. You can't really go up to 1/4 inch or anything, but I bought it just for filling in holes, so doing body work, panels and whatnot. So we'll start with welding up some holes. Again, another super important thing, protect your eyes, wear a welding mask. If you don't, you're obviously going to get sunburn on your eyes, and it's not pretty. So this is a gas welder. I do have argon mixed gas, and I've got it on a medium wire speed, and the C setting on my amperage, which is fairly high, but it works good, I think, for filling in these body panels and whatnot, for what I have, at least, a 20-year-old welder. But you're gonna start off kind of at an angle. You're gonna, like, with this kind of thicker material, it's not so bad. You don't really find too many burn throughs on the thicker stuff, but once you get into just like regular sheet metal type stuff, like this for instance, thin 18 gauge, you're gonna burn right through this if you have your amperage set too high and your wire speed too low. But yeah, so just be mindful of that. You're gonna start off on an angle and build up a little bit of a bead and work slow. Just tack there, tack there, tack there, and you should have it filled in. And of course it's got this seam sealer underneath, so it's gonna sit there and melt away and burn. But that's the gist of it. Fill it in, grind it down. If you need to do a little more filling, you know, add a little bit more weld in there. So I'll get grind these down, fill these in too. That's a little better. Sometimes it just rolls right through. Now, if you do find yourself burning through the metal, just let it cool down. Take 2 or 3 seconds, let it cool down, get that glow out of it, and hit it again. Maybe on the other side. If you're working over here, work over on this side. Yeah, one more little hole here. Perfect. So, you guys get the gist of it. Work slow. Don't have high amperage, high heat. But, yeah, work at it nice and slow. I like to have my wire speed around 5.5, 6, and my amperage at a C. I'm not too sure on what it really works out to amperage wise, but that's what I find that works the best on my Weld Pack 100. So, and then we'll go ahead, grind these down, get them all nice and smoothed out, and yeah, basically fill in the rest. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna take a hole saw and get rid of these divots in here and just weld I'll cut out a circle out of one of my panels, my 18 gauge sheet metal, and weld that in. Also, again, weld this in, and then I'll eventually, once my boost tubing comes over, I'll have it coming down right in here, and I'll cut out well, boost tubing's 2.5 inch. I'll probably cut out maybe a 3, maybe a 2 3/4 inch hole, and then I'll run some 1/4 inch vacuum tubing around it to give it a smooth edge. And it will, you know, if your boost tubing does hit up against it, it's gonna hit the rubber vacuum tubing instead of banging up against the metal, causing, you know, boost leaks and rub through and wrecking your paint and whatever. So, but yeah, let's grind these ones down. And there we have it. Nice clean welded up holes. You can tell that I missed a couple little spots every once in a while. Not too bad. Nothing gonna be major there, but once we get this entire panel stripped down, cleaned up, you know, ready for paint, I'll prime it first, and then I'll start to body fill and smooth all this stuff out. These will just basically get filled in with primer and body filler. So yeah, this will be my project of shaving all these little holes, cleaning up the areas, and this is going to be one of the major parts. So I'll have to pull the dash for that one. But that's basic filling in holes and stripping seam sealer off of Mk2 Jettas. Oh man, I probably got seam sealer dust all over me. Oh well, I guess that's the price you pay for wanting a shave bay. But this is going to be the process. So if you guys want to stay around, I'll run a time lapse after the goodbyes, and yeah. So if you guys like the content, want to keep following, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment what you guys would do differently. I'm always looking for criticism, better ways of doing things, and yeah, follow along, guys. Till next time.